Hello and welcome back to day 2 of our Cheltenham Festival preview. Racing Weekly in association with oddschecker and Bet365. We've landed lots of good selections for day 1, so hopefully it's going to be the same for day 2. Andy, we're going to crack on with the Turners and Novices Hurdle. The news today that Mighty Park is going to head to the Supreme instead. But it's an interesting contest. Whether that means that Talk the Talk is going to reroute is obviously going to be a question mark. But No Drama this end, I think, probably sets the standard.
Arguably. Yeah, I don't think he's beaten a great deal.
Can say no.
Yeah, because I'm not absolutely sure. I actually think this is a harder race than the Supreme. I think you could chuck the balls up in the air and come down with about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 different outcomes. A lot of these are going to improve for the trip. Talk the Talk, if he comes here, he could be anything over 2.5. Skylight Hustle, similar comments apply. And there's quite a few dangerous floats as well. And horses that have put up big numbers and that have looked real strong stayers at the trip, like Sotudo and I'll Sort That. They're like 16-1. So I find this one quite tricky. I wouldn't be able to look myself in the eye if I didn't back Talk the Talk in this race, because he's just been phenomenal. He was unlucky when he fell at Christmas at Leopardstown. He did incredibly well to run down King Rascal Grey and Ballyfad in a slowly run race. Only the real good horses are capable to do that. So I think he's got a bit of everything, and I think he'll go our favourite. And there's one at a very big price as well from Willie Mullins. He'll be 33 to 1, 25 to 1, but he shouldn't be. Laurent Destraval, who won at Thurles a couple of weeks ago. He clocked a very, very big time, and eye-poppingly fast time. I thought, Christ, what on earth is this? And I put up a horse called Playtime out of that race the other day, and my column, who finished 3rd, he's beaten half the field, and a Dyke, and he absolutely trotted up at Leopardstown. So I think that form, that time figure is really good. And he's a lovely horse. Whatever happens, make a note of Laurent Destraval. He will make a lovely chaser. And if Richie and Connections want to run him in that, they're fully entitled to, and he's no hoper. So those would be my 2. One at a big price, and Talk the Talk, very solid down the front end.
Yeah, Talk the Talk, 100 to 30, no run, no bet currently with Bet365. Laura's Destravant, 33 to 1. Pat, how does this race look as a bookmaker?
Well, No Drama this end has been favourite for this race for about 3 or 4 months now, but he's not exactly blown everybody away with his performances, has he? He's turned up, he's won. We like him. He hasn't done a lot wrong in his career, but
Challow Hurdle winners always win this race, don't they, based on last year?
Yeah, there is that curse he's got to overcome. But he's not a horse that the public have really latched onto. I can see him just not being favourite on the day. I can certainly see him winning. But there's other horses come into the race who have been in more competitive races, which is good to see. In recent days, Ballyfad has been popular. I think we were double figures him. He's now a lot less. He looks like he's going to turn up. But there's not much between all the Irish horses, really. One that may be of interest is Act of Innocence of Nicky Henderson. Again, he's been popular round about 10 or 12 to 1. But I go back to No Drama this end. The public just aren't putting him in the multiples. You know, he's been favourite for this race, like I say, for a while. But he's not one the public have latched onto, really. So if you fancy him, I'd wait till the day. I could imagine him being 4, maybe even 5 to 1.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see who the market gets behind. Dan, I think it's probably the market for this is going to be influenced by who Jack Kennedy chooses to ride, because I like the chances of both Skylight Hustle and Ballyfad. They're both previous point-to-point winners. I think they're both going to improve for the step-up and trip to this intermediate distance. But is there either one of those two or a different one who you fancy in this?
If Talk the Talk turns here, I'd be all over him for this. And I'd been somewhat hesitant about him all season in that he was clearly a bit of a work in progress, that we saw that at Christmas time when he was coming to win that Grade 1 where sort of overjumped the last, but before that his jumping hadn't been great. He'd been quite keen during his races, and I was really against him at the DRF. I was all over Ballyfad in opposition, thinking he'd go forward, very uncomplicated. He will take a world of beating on ground that should suit him. And I think Joseph O'Brien was almost implied that they were almost happy to get beaten that day at the DRF, where they were just going to teach him, they were going to settle him in, weren't sure on the ground. The weekend where it was very hard to make up ground from off the pace, he did remarkably well to win that. And what I liked was that his jumping has clearly improved. When he needed a good jump at the last, he got every inch of it. He winged the last, and that was ultimately the difference. Despite my agony and the fact the cameraman was focused on Ballyfad, my friends to my left from me were adamant Ballyfad had won. He hadn't. And it was only to the testament of Talk the Talk's ability that he was able to do so in a slowly run race. I think the tempo of this race will suit him better than the Supreme, and then he'll be better able to utilise that turn of foot. Obviously, the step up in trip, a bit of an unknown. There is some stamina in the pedigree. But I think he'll be able to utilise that tactical pace he's clearly showed better in a Turners than he would in Supreme. And if he does run here, was he 10-3? Was he? Yeah, I think he'd go off short than that. I think he'll go off favourite, and he'd be a really strong fancy for me. The only one at a bigger price I like, maybe not for this race, but for the future, is Bossman Jack. I think there's a lot of ability there. He's probably a bit too raw at this stage of his career to really fulfill it. But I think in the future, Bossman Jack is a horse you're going to hear a lot about, maybe probably as a chaser next year.
Yeah, I think Talk the Talk. I think the finishing speed percentage of that race at the Dublin Racing Festival was about 113%. Like, he did so well to make up that 10 lengths at the
On
last.
sticky ground as well, when very few got competitive from off the pace. Saw some of the handicaps. They were strung out, only from the front were getting involved. It was a performance I was somewhat hesitant to believe, but the more I look at it, the more I watch it back. You're looking at his rivals there. You've got Skylight Hustle he was going to beat. I think Skylight Hustle improved for the step up in trip, but Talk the Talk I think has improved markedly. He'd beaten Ballyfad despite everything going wrong for him that day. And King Rasco Grey is also in there, who also beat handsomely. So I think momentum will get behind him if he turns up here.
Yeah, Warren, your thoughts on this one?
Well, at the moment, they're sticking that Talk the Talk is going to run in the Supreme, although I think they are starting to think about it. They were basically tunnel vision to the Supreme, and now they're definitely waning. They're thinking about it, and I love this horse. I think he's got everything. If he didn't run, I would like to see Dr. Steinberg in here. I was very taken with him at Leopardstown. They're on about running him in the Albert Bartlett, but he's a bit keen.
Yeah, I think he didn't even get confirmed for this race today. So, yeah, he's definitely going to run in the Albert
I'm doing
Bartlett.
my job well then, aren't I? Don't, whatever you do, go for Dr. Steinberg, because he's not in it. Some clown on the stage just told you. So, yeah, on that note then, yeah, if Talk the Talk runs, he will win.
There we go. He will win. Don't forget about Dr. Steinberg. I particularly like the fact that Talk the Talk, he was brought out early in sort of October time in the search for good ground. So what he's been doing recently on sort of the softer surface and the heavy ground, that isn't by design. I think with the weather forecast, I think actually better ground would suit him better. And yeah, I think he'd have a massive chance if he ends up coming to the Turners. Warren, I'm going to come back to you for the Brown Advisory Novices Chase. You've got Final Demand heading the market at 3-1, bidding to bounce back from defeat at the Dublin Racing Festival here. Romeo Coolio is obviously in here as well as the Arkle and the Ryanair Chase. Kay Doughty, who beat Final Demand at the Dublin Racing Festival at 9-2. The big Westerner, who ran well in the Albert Bartlett last year. Wendigo, who also did at 7-1. Western Fold, who finished ahead of Final Demand at the Dublin Racing Festival at 7-1 as well. So this looks a stronger contest than what it did a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I've always been a Final Demand fan, but again, you've got to, after two, well, although he won the time before, it wasn't exactly impressive, beating horses that he should have beaten very easily, and then the last day he obviously flopped. I thought Kay Doughty was impressive, first time cheap pieces. I was really taken with Western Fold. I think he's battle hardened. I think he could run very well on better ground because they've been waiting for the better ground. But I think the story would be Oscar's brother. Two brothers, JP's gone and bought it. He's obviously a very, very good horse, and he looks rock solid, that horse. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one that could come out on top.
Yeah, Oscar's brother, currently available at 10-1, no run or no bet with Bet365. Pat, talk to me about Final Demand. Obviously, it was as short as around 6-5, I think, before the Dublin Racing Festival. Has obviously been pushed out, but over the last few days has come back in. Is he still going to be your biggest loser in the book?
I would imagine so. I mean, at the start of the season, he was probably the shortest price favourite at the Cheltenham Festival. I actually know his owner, Brian Drew, pretty well. And I did say for my sins, when he won at Limerick prior to his disappointing run, I did say to him, not everyone was impressed by that performance. And he did say to me that Patrick Mullins rode, there was a stable companion in the race that they didn't want to be done for speed. So he wanted to make it a true run race. and he wasn't seen to his best that day. And he did say to me, next time you see him at Leopardstown, he'll be a much better horse in a much better race. Well, that didn't pan out, of course. He was disappointing. But the vibes do seem to be good. I am sort of judged by a lot of people that I spoke to just weren't that taken with any of his chase wins so far this season. So he's one of those, he's coming back in demand in the market, but he's still around about 3-1. Of course, he has to beat Kate de Thur, who won handily. There was an ante-post move for the big Westerner a couple of weeks ago, but she's a talented mare. She gets half a stone, but all the form is with rain. That's not going to happen, so I can imagine her drifting. One that is interesting is Western Fold. This is bear in mind, this is a novice. I think he's had 12 runs over fences, which seems incredible, really. And he was noted running on last time. One that has joined the market, really, is Cocktail Diving of Henry de Bromhead, who we all had penciled in as this could be well in the handicap, but connections are leaning towards that one. I would monitor to see if that one is in the final decks. The Final Demand, he's very highly regarded, and I remember Gaelic Warrior, he blew out at Leopardstown, didn't he? And then he suddenly turned up at Cheltenham and put together a dazzling performance. If you said to me who's the best horse in the race, I'd say Final Demand. But I couldn't point to any of his runs this year and say, he's one of these favourites. You think, well, OK, if he wins, so be it. But we don't mind having the others.
No, you mentioned that Gaelic Warrior trend. I actually went back through all of the horses that won that Grade 1 at Limerick and how they performed in the Ladbrokes Novices Chase at the Dublin Racing Festival. So last year, Imperi Pass won that Grade 1 at Limerick, the Faheen Novices Chase, then was disappointing at the Dublin Racing Festival, and they kept him back, and he won a Novice Chase at Aintree. 2 years before that, Gaelic Warrior won the Grade 1 at Limerick at Christmas, fell when well beaten behind Fat to File at the Dublin Racing Festival and came back to win the Arkle. I then went all the way back to 2016. Bells Hill won the Grade 1 at Limerick over Christmas, fell when well beaten at the Dublin Racing Festival, and then came back and finished third in the RSA. So there's just something about that Grade 1 at Limerick, whether it's the heavy ground, whether it's the time between that and the Dublin Racing Festival. But Willie Mullins has done it with 3 horses, brought them back from disappointing runs at the Dublin Racing Festival in order to come back to run well at the Cheltenham Festival. And yeah, I really like Final Demand. I think you are getting a good price on the back of one disappointing effort. So for me, I really like Final Demand in this. Dan, I know that you are in a difference of opinion to me.
Very much so, yeah. My problem with him is that he's been in a battle twice in his life and he's seemingly thrown it away on both occasions. Now, you can make excuses in the turners last year at the festival. The ground was on the quick side. He's probably not a horse with a massive turn of pace. Maybe that counted against him. But he ultimately was quite well beaten in the end, having been talked up massively. And then again, he had Cade Doughty jumping on his outside at the DRF. His main asset, from what we all seen so far, was his cruising speed and his jumping. And his jumping rather fell to pieces down the back the second time. Like when Cade Doughty out-jumped him, Final Demand didn't get back and almost jumped alongside again. He just kept getting half-length, and I just don't think he has a battling attribute that I'd like to see in a 3-mile novice chaser. So that would be a big concern for me. The market's going to focus on him again because you're looking at a host of horses in behind who realistically you're probably seeing more as Grand National types rather than Gold Cup types in the future. And it was only after his chase debut, Final Demand was, 9-2 in places for the Gold Cup the next year. Everyone was blown away by his chase debut. And he jumped immaculately, and there was a lot to like. But this race is going to require a battle, you think, because there are a lot of worthy opposition here, a lot of stout stayers, the likes of a Western Fold, the likes of a Wendigo, the likes of a Cade Doughty, who's a horse who's always been almost buying time and is maybe coming to age now, finally, although he may want softer ground. So I think there's a lot to forgive with Final Demand, and he's still the market leader. I just don't think you're getting the price to compensate for it.
Andy, your thoughts?
A good deal depends on what the ground's going to be here, because I think the dynamics of it might change one way or the other. And I think Darragh O'Keefe has got a big headache on his hands here, because the big Westerner has been Henry de Bromhead's arguably number 1 horse for quite a while. But she's very ground dependent. I'm not saying she's not going to handle good ground, but she's a better mare on soft ground. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. The best horse in this race, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, by a mile, is Cocktail Divan. He's one of the most talented horses I've seen for a long time. I'm sort of, bit of a Victor Meldrew character nowadays. I've seen it all, been there, done it. Nothing really sort of gets me out of my seat anymore. But that performance when this horse won at Christmas was just wow. And what I like to do, I've got far too much time on my hands, is I dragged 2 races up where I've got a really good race and a novice race. You basically set them off going past the winning line, and you just watch the races develop on 2 screens. And I compared Cocktail de Van with the Savills victory of Affordale Fury, which had Galopin de Champs in it. And you set them off at the same time, and you watch how the 2 races develop. By the time they got to the winning post, Cocktail de Van was 9 seconds quicker than Affordale Fury. He was electric. His jumping was sublime. And if you go onto the Racing TV website, you can actually still see the interview with Darragh O'Keefe, and he just couldn't believe it. He was almost like shaking with disbelief what he's just done on this horse. He just like completely and utterly took him into another stratosphere. The only question mark with him is the ground. He got beat by Oscar's brother on soft ground over 3 miles, and if it was genuine soft ground, I think he might struggle to get home. But if it was good ground, he'll just put up a jumping clinic, and he'll put this lot under a serious amount of pressure. If he doesn't run here and he goes for the handicap, he's an absolute stone bonking certainty to win that Jack Richards. We'll get onto that on the Thursday. But I'm hoping he runs here because he is some horse, he's Cocktail de Van.
No concerns about 3 mile stamina for him?
I just on the ground, not on good ground, not a problem at all. He'll just kick, because the further he was going at Leopardstown, the stronger he was becoming. The further he was going away from those Savills horses, but that was on good ground. Soft ground's a different ball game.
And sometimes when you see a performance like that, would you be worried that they could do it again?
I would, in a quick turnout, if it was like within a month. But he's had. I love Henry what he does as well. When he runs them in that time of the year, and then he leaves off in the Dublin Racing Festival. He hardly ran a horse at the Dublin Racing Festival. He didn't want to take his horses anywhere near soft or heavy ground, pull the guts out of him. He's left him off deliberately to keep him fresh for Cheltenham. So yeah, Cocktail de Van, if he runs, he'll win.
There we go. I think we need to add this to this Andy Holding special treble.
I
can't wait for the last one. It's more confident selection than that.
It's not the first horse of Henry's I'm going to be drooling over.
Yeah, and the fact that he's obviously only rated 150 in a handicap, and they're thinking of coming here would probably.
It's very tempting to go in the handicap because he'd basically be a Grade 1 horse in a handicap off 150, and he should be 160 plus.
There we go. Very confident selection from Andy Holden then. That's Cocktail de Van in the Brown Advisory Novices Chase. Pat, I'm going to come to you first for the Champion Chase. So we've lost the reigning Champion Chaser, Marie Nationale. So that means that Margeborough is currently odds on for the Champion Chase.
Yeah, and of course we like to do price boosts, one every day at the festival. It wouldn't take an astronaut to figure out what we're going to have a price boost for this race. You'd think it's bound to be Margeborough. But you do look at him, don't you? He's odds on for the race. Could you put him as a banker in your play spot? I don't think you could you? I mean, the last run was absolutely spectacular. But we weren't in love with him in his previous runs this season, and we certainly weren't in love with him when he got beat at 2-1 on at this meeting last year. So there's lots of doubts about him. We were quite happy to have Marie Nationale in the opposition to him. But now we've got him as an odds-on favourite, and what would you rather do? Would you rather lay him or play him at odds-on? You know, from our point of view, we do recognise, of course, the owner could just say, look, he's an absolute good thing. The last time run is more than sufficient to win. But it does come with question marks attached to him, doesn't he? And if we can lay him at odds-on, all well and good. That being said, I don't particularly like too many of the runners that are in our corner. I just think Margeborough can beat Margeborough rather than the opposition. Lotus Sad, well, he was always going to be lightly raced to come here. His Cheltenham form is quite good. Ilete Tom, you'd like to think the horse that won at Sandown when he absolutely won in great style from John Bunn would turn up, but he's got that to prove as well. And that's been a bit lukewarm. Quilixios, he seems to have run around Cheltenham all his life, but he's not run for a year. So Margeborough will probably win, but bookmakers taking him on at odds on, I could see everyone being looking at him thinking, if we get this one beat, we really will have a good meeting, and we'll live or die on that.
Yeah, punters at the back, Marshall, I'm sure will probably be watching it half behind a pillow, won't they, for half this race. His performance was unbelievable on soft ground in first-time cheat pieces, but it's whether he can put that all together and repeat it. Warren, your thoughts on the horse and the race on the whole?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. If he produces the Leopardstown run, he'll win, won't he? Yeah. But can you trust him? Yeah, I wouldn't be Well, I wouldn't want to be riding him, I know that. But yeah, he's very, very talented. I would take a chance each way on Quilixios. Again, a little bit like, you know, Henry's biggest lover here. I just think Henry knows what he's doing. If he turns up, they've got him ready, and I think he loves Cheltenham, doesn't he? And maybe the time to get him is fresh. He'll definitely be fit enough. He could just be the one. I'm with Pat. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, you know, none of them would, you know, Lodesud. I don't think he doesn't look good enough, does he? ante-post was on the ground for 5 minutes. You know, that's not an ideal preparation, although. So and then John Bon won't run, and yeah, it's probably Marlborough to lose, to be honest, isn't it?
I think so. Andy, we were both there when Lodesud beat John Bon in that Schlur chase. It was an unbelievable performance. They've kind of learnt from last year. They're going to come here fresh. I thought he was a rock-solid each-way bet. You can't really back him each way at 100 to 30 at current odds. ante-post, you've got the question mark around Cheltenham, obviously beaten in a Triumph, beaten in a Supreme, beaten in an Arkle. Will he come back from his Clarence Chase run? I didn't believe that I'd be sat here and seeing Quilixios at 7-1 after 364 days off the track, but it's just that kind of race, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had a few good ante-posts on Lodesud. I took a view a few weeks ago that he was valued, 7 or 8-1, thinking, oh, you know, he's a bit of a maggot each way bet, and a bit lucky that obviously Marine National's come out, because that makes that bet look a little bit more solid. Will I bet him on the day now? Absolutely not at 7-2. But could he win? Yes. Obviously, it all depends on what Marlborough does. We've got 3 bits of evidence to say that Marlborough's a poor jumper, and 1 to say he's a spectacular jumper. So it all depends what kind of punter you are, whether you go with a spectacular one and take a punt at odds on. It wouldn't interest me at that kind of price. I'd just let him win. But I do think Lodesud has got more of a puncher's chance, because he's a fresh horse, and that's the best time to catch him. When he beat John Bon by 15 wickets, he was really good that day. And then they ran him at the Tingle Creek only a few weeks after, and once again he bombed. He bombed in last year's Arkle, but they ran him at Warwick 3 or 4 weeks before. They've learned by the mistakes. They do that, don't they? The Skeltons, they're really good. They you know, admit, they put their hands up and say, we got that wrong, we won't do it again. You know. So what's that saying? The sign of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting the same results, and they very much. You know, go against that maxim. So, yeah, I've backed Lodesud, but yeah, he's a bit stingy now.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't even bother confirming Thistle asked for the race just shows the confidence, I think, behind the stable in there as well. Dan, open renewal, I think, outside of Marlborough.
Very much so. I think with Marlborough, obviously, it's a bit like brighter days ahead for me at the DRF, where everything somewhat conspired to put in the performance that he did. Obviously, the softer ground was very much in his favour. His 2 main rivals were Solness and Marine Nationale. Both want better ground, and crucially as well, Solness, a perennial front runner, somehow managed to miss the kick in a 2-mile chase, which doesn't happen very often, and was never really able to lie up and give opposition on the jumping front. So I think you have to look at this race tactically as to, is anything going to want to challenge Marlborough for the lead and get involved and maybe put his jumping under pressure? Solness may well wait for Aintree rather than coming here. Maybe the news of Marine Nationale coming out will tempt them to go here instead. He'll get his better ground. He may well give some opposition. Irish Panther, if they defected from the Arkle to go here, he's another front runner. But realistically, I think there's going to be a bit of a fear factor about wanting to challenge Marlborough and almost hoping he beats himself rather than something going forward to beat him. The only horse I think who's able to put a performance that is able to beat Marlborough's best is ante-post. The question is, as you've already mentioned, is he a Cheltenham horse? I do think he's better than he has been any time he's run at Cheltenham previously. His win at the end of last season in the celebration I thought was unbelievable. Yes, it's end of season form, you can caveat it, but the form made sense. You took him out, the form just made sense. The fact that John Bon would have been a clear winner, it was just all adding up. He reappeared in the same form. Yes, obviously, he was a heavy fall last time out. I imagine he'll be fairly weak because people will just look at the Cheltenham form and think he's got no chance. If he gets to the price where he's somewhat about Quilixios' price, I'd maybe take the chance that he could pick up the pieces if, say, Marlborough fluffs his lines. But it's going to be, as you say, a nervy watch if you're a Marlborough supporter, but is anything going to want to challenge him? And if they do in the front end, that might make it a more interesting race.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating contest. Some other good races on the Wednesday, Andy. You've also got the BetMGM Cup, the Old Coral Cup. You've got the cross-country chase, which is obviously now back to a handicap. You've got the champion bumper in there as well. Any other fancies?
Yeah, Coral Cup will be an on-the-day race for me, or the day before. Obviously doing my column if I do go for anything. I do quite like a couple in the handicaps. I've had a few quid ante-post on Ryan's Rocket. That was the blessing of disguise, of all blessing in disguises, when that horse, Unseated Rider, in the Desert Orchid of Grade 2, he was punted off the boards. He only rated 135 going into that, and he was up against this last good one, the Howland Gold Cup, was rated in the 150s. But he was absolutely cantering at the time when he fell. I think he would have won that race had he stayed on his feet. The market was very heavily in his favour to suggest that he was a graded horse. But he went into it 135 and has come out of it 135. He hasn't even gone up retrospectively. And he was really good when he jumped well around Newbury. I'm not saying he's completely bomb-proof jumping-wise, because he hasn't, he's got a mistake in him. So he's a bit of one of those all-or-nothing kind of horses, but he's incredibly well handicapped off 135. There's no denying that. And I've had a few quid on Keep Him Company of Gordon Elliott's in the bumper. By far and away, the fastest run time figure that we've got this season was his performance when he won at Christmas. And Gordon really likes him, and he will get a strongly run race. The quicker they go, the better his chances. So, yeah, he'd be my idea of a solid bet in the bump, because he's already proven he can run in a championship level speed figure.
Yeah, that's Keep Him Company in the champion bumper, currently available at 8-1. I also like him. The fact that Gordon Elliott had the 1, 2, 3 at the Dublin Racing Festival in the Grade 2 bumper, and basically pre-race had said that Keep Him Company was going to be his number one for the Cheltenham champion bumper. Kind of says it all, really.
I don't think Willie's got anything special in it this year. Love Sign Deleu. Everyone was raving about him. Time for him got a really good time, but we got a terrible time for it. So he strikes me being a bit of a Copacabana. Copacabana had done a bad number last year and he ran poorly. I think he's a bit of a Copacabana.
Yeah, and the other one for Andy there was Ryan's Rocket at 8-1. No run and no bet in the Grand Annual. Pat, anything else for day 2?
Yeah, well, oddly, also at Kelso, albeit not in the swimming pool with me, was Fergal O'Brien of Ryan's Rocket fame. And Fergal, of course, hasn't had a winner at the Cheltenham Festival, but he was quite optimistic about Ryan's Rocket, pretty much stride for stride what Andy said. Pretty much a little bit too early to say for certain, but he said the jockey thought he would have won it.
Trading at odds on him running when he fell.
So that looks a good line of form. So on that basis, you do look at his handicap mark and think, well, he is well handicapped. He's just had the 2 runs this year, and Fergal was very, very keen on him. He said it's all gone sweetly, all gone to plan. The stable are having winners, so I think at his price, I think his price will hold up because he's unseated in 2 of his last 3. But he was probably the moral winner of both of those, so he could be coming here with 3 1s by his name. Fergal will have a winner at the festival eventually, and I don't know about his swimming qualities, but he's a good trainer, isn't he?
He'd do a lap of honour, wouldn't he, Fergal, if he had the winner? My goodness me.
Yeah, it'd be some celebration,
Yeah,
wouldn't
it would be, yeah.
Warren, anything on day 2 for you?
Knee slide.
No real thoughts in the handicaps.
That's fine. Move over to my handicap expert on the end.
Yeah, what was the Coral Cup? Jinko Blue for me in there. I just think he's got the ideal sort of Nicky Henderson profile for the race, a trainer who obviously does tremendously well in it. Obviously, a big run last time out when second in the rail killed to Gibraltar Matan, who we'll touch on in probably about an hour's or so time. He's been building back slowly from a chasing career that actually started off reasonably well, and he got to a mark 151 in that discipline. Now over hurdles, only rated 144. First run of the season was the big 3 mile handicap at Sandown, where I think it was just a bit of a case of blowing the cobwebs away. He had back surgery in the interim. Just a very classy hurdler, given a bit of a break, worked with Jinko Blue at the Gallops Day. For those who like Gallops Days, he was not too far away from the Gold Cup favourite there, although Bold Endeavour was a mile behind or jogging around that day. I just think he's got the ideal profile for it. The cross country, I just think Favori Deschamps will go off favourite, and I think he'll win. Eddie O'Leary's come out moaning about the mark he's got, and, well, you did bolt up in the trial and won doing handstands. You only went up £8 for it. And I think handicap marks in the cross-country aren't as important as they would be in conventional races. It's very much a case of who handles the discipline, who can take to it, and he arrives, despite being 11 in career best form, having won the Paddy Power, and then obviously won the cross-country race at the handicap trial. I just think getting Wade off Stumptown, he's had a better preparation. He'll take the world of beating. And the Grand Annual, there's a couple. I think down Mexico way, it was interesting that Henry ran him in the Irish Arkle to get the 4th run in. He's got a couple of potential entries. He's also in the plate. But I just thought his overall profile was that of a horse who prefers better ground. That was his 4th run of the fences. It gets him qualified for the handicaps. just keep an eye on where he goes, because obviously he clearly hasn't been decided. And the other one was Break My Soul for Ian Donoghue, another one who comes from a completely different line of form, but she was a very keen-going mare when trained by Nicky Henderson, and she'd always had ability, but never really managed to get her act together. But Ian Donoghue's done a remarkable job. She finished second to Kitzbühel on her first start for the yard. She wasn't all that far behind Lossiemouth and Woodhoo at Aintree, over 2.5 miles, a trip that probably stretches her. She won impressively on Chase debut, was given 2 very tough assignments, and then shaped, I thought, eye-catchingly well last time, when again getting her 4th run in behind Pure Steel, who is going to go for the Grade 1 next time out and looks a very smart horse. She was only about 3 lengths down jumping the last and was not given a hard time once beaten. She is a very high cruising speed, slick jumping mare, and she's rated 4 pounds lower over fences than she has on her Irish hurdles mark. So of those that maybe aren't being looked at because it's a relatively small trainer, she has the attributes for a Grand Annual in a race where I think a lot are fairly exposed, and I think she's 20 to 1 plus, so she'd be of big interest for me if she goes there.
Yeah, she is, yeah. So that's Break My Soul, 20 to 1 for Dan in the Grand Annual, and Jinko Blue at 14 to 1 in the BetMGM Cup. I'll throw a couple of extra novices in the Grand Annual. Van der Poel and Be Aware. Be Aware has form linked to Lalamba, who we obviously touched on in the Arkle, tried to set a ridiculous pace in the Henry VIII Novices Chase at Sandown. Now could make a handicap debut here, and obviously the Skeltons have a good record in that race. Van der Poel, obviously Ben Pauling has had a brilliant season so far. Similar sort of thing going into a handicap company. My concern with Van der Poel would be the fact that he's 4 from 4 going right-handed and now has to go back left-handed. But apparently that isn't by design, that he's been kept away from left-handed tracks. And I do like novice chasers going into the Grand Annual. I do think it's a good angle. I also like Jinko Blue in the BetMGM Cup. The other one that took my eye was the Yellow Clay, who's 14 to 1. He's on the same mark as his Irish mark in that. This is the same Yellow Clay that finished second behind the New Lion in the Turners, with Final Demand in third. So the fact that the New Lion is currently favourite for the Champion Hurdle and Final Demand is favourite for a Brown Advisory. I thought the Yellow Clay at a double figure price for the BetMGM Cup was quite a big price, to be honest. And I'll be taking you on with Favre de Champdou. I think Stumptown can win back-to-back cross-country chases, to be honest. If you look, the 3 main dangers to him are all 11 years old. Favre de Champdou, Desert Moor House, and Vanillier. Stumptown's still remarkably only 9. He should really be unbeaten over the banks. This has been the design to come here fresh, having won the Pardubice over in the Czech Republic. I'd be more concerned about his preparation if he'd been declared for or entered for the races in the cross-country in October, November and December, but it hasn't. As soon as he won that race, they were then going to put him away for the cross-country chase. The fact that he's running here off top weight knocks a fair amount of these out of the handicap. There's a new BHA rule where you can't run from being more than 15 pounds out of the handicap. So this is going to be a smaller field than normal. And I think at a similar sort of price, Stumptown is around 11 to 4 as well as Favre de Champdou. So at the same sort of price, I'd prefer Stumptown. So we'll go to the panel for the day 2 naps. I'm going to go from the end first. So Dan, your best bet on day 2.
If he runs in the Turners, talk the talk.
Currently available at 100 to 30, Warren.
If he runs in this, talk the talk if he runs in the Turners.
Available at 100 to 30.
Ryan's Rocket, Grand Annual for Fergal.
Yeah, currently available at 8 to 1 with Bet365.
Yeah, Ryan's Rocket for me as well.
There we go. 2 votes for Talk the Talk, 2 votes for Ryan's Rocket. I also like Talk the Talk for the Turners. So hopefully, connections of Talk the Talk are watching this preview and decide to go for the Turners. So 100 to 30, Talk the Talk, there you go. That's going to be your best bet for day 2. Thank you very much for watching this preview. We'll be back shortly for day 3.